question is going to be really hard.
No worries. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I am the show's creator, and I'm also its host. Okay, so for those of you who just tuned in to this show for the very, very first time, yeah, Global Citizens is a platform whereby I invited multiculturals such as TCK, digital nomads, international speakers, and expatriates who have experienced life outside of their host country. Reason being why I invited such individuals is because when you are in your home country and you're visiting a new place, yes, you are exposed to new kind of surroundings. However, that is visiting. When you're living there, you get to experience things, issues that might not be common at your home country. And well, when you are exposed to issues like racism or maybe cultural differences. So now my guest for today is somebody who is really special. She is one of the pioneers to originate the term TCK. She is a TEDx speaker and she is the founder of TCK Global. Please welcome Ms Jedidiah San Juan Silud, also known as Jay the TCK. Hi Jay, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. All right. So we will just jump into the very first question. So it is customary for the first question whereby somehow everybody hates me for it. So in this show, there's a term called TC Quest. So basically, it's the countries that you have lived in. So can you tell us a little bit more about your TC Quest and your definition of home?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I lived in Manila. I'll just go by cities. Manila, Guangzhou, Beijing, Hong Kong, and London. And then I traveled around the US and Europe. Yeah, those are the places I've lived in. And I'm trying to remember. And what my definition of home is feeling. I don't really think that for someone who travels very frequently, I don't think that home can be defined as a specific location because there are too many locations to pick from, and there are too many emotional attachments you have with different aspects of each place. So that might be people or things or animals. I don't know whatever it is. It's different for everybody. So for me, home is a feeling, and usually I get that feeling when I'm with agriculture kids, or when I'm with my family, or when I'm with very good friends of mine.
All right. Okay. So along with that, yeah. Have you ever experienced a reverse cultural shock? Like, let's say when you are back to, let's say, Manila. You're currently living in London now. So let's say you're back in Guangzhou or when you are back in Manila. How do you think your mindset and perspective differs, especially in terms of reverse cultural shock, maybe? And along with that, sorry.
No, go for it.
And yeah, and has it affected your relationship with your significant others and also with family members? So, because from what I know from your YouTube videos, your boyfriend is actually an Italian and he's a monocultural, right?
And he's a what, sorry?
Monocultural, sorry, in Italy.
Yeah. Yes. Well, he in London now.
Okay.
Reverse shock. So that's yeah, I've experienced it before many times. It's very weird because when I was about 16 years old, I went to the Philippines for a holiday, and that was when I was old enough to kind of understand that there was something strange going on. I didn't know what it was, but I started to feel like I didn't belong there, and the feeling was very intense. When I spoke the language of the Philippines, I had a strange international accent. I think I look Filipino, but over there I don't look Filipino. Apparently, I look Chinese. I'm not. I don't know. Just things that my family members over there, like my extended family, would like, I didn't really like, or I didn't understand. I didn't know a lot of the pop culture references. I didn't really know, slang words or the lingo, and I spoke like an old person over there because I just knew the language that I was taught when I was young by my parents. So that was very strange, and I didn't like living there. I only saw it as a holiday destination. So I didn't know anything about the city really. I knew like my grandpa's house and like where the beaches were. But when if anyone would ask me for directions anywhere, I would literally be like, I don't know, I don't live here. So for me, culture shock was quite a difficult experience because that continued to happen every time I went to visit. And then that also happened to me in Beijing, because I had lived in Beijing for a large portion of my life. And after high school, so after 12 years of living there, I left and then I came back to visit my home. And I had different Chinese mannerisms. I could speak the language. I knew everywhere in China. But by the time I had come back, all of the places that I used to go to were torn down, and then new things were rebuilt. And I didn't speak Chinese as fluently as I did when I was there. And I realized I started to forget some words, and the way I did things were then different. So it was that was strange. So yeah, culture shock is a very strange thing that I tend to go through if I've lived in a place for a period of time, or if it's of my home country, which I've never lived in really.
All right. Earlier, you mentioned regarding your appearance, because when you're back in Philippines, of course, well, people will know that you're Filipino. Of course, you don't.
Yeah.
The thing is, internally, you just don't feel that. You just don't feel, okay, I feel like a stranger here, even though I'm supposed to treat this place as my home. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
ever once, when you are, especially when you are younger, whereby you feel incredibly insecure with regards to your appearance? So why I ask this is because one of my past guests, who is actually a Filipino who grew up in Taiwan, actually experienced an issue whereby he actually liked to play basketball, which I think is a national sport of the Philippines, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So he loved to play basketball, but the thing is, when he was younger, he actually never leave the house to play in the court. The reason being is that he is insecure regarding his skin tone, is because he doesn't want to get his skin even darker. Because in Taiwan, the basketball court, it's outside, right? So do you ever have such issue on this? And maybe if you can give any advice, especially to young ladies, because TCK already have its own issue, and when you hit your teenage years, it's even more difficult.
So I had a problem with how I looked, but I did notice that in the Philippines, people would prefer it if I was white, and then outside, they would prefer it if I was darker. So
Okay.
I thought it was a bit strange. Like when I would go to the beach with family members in the Philippines, and my extended
Yep.
family, they would get mad at me for trying to tan. And then they would be like, "You're ruining your skin. You need to be really pale. Go to the
Oh God.
shade. Cover yourself. Here's like a hat. Put on like 500 tons of sunscreen on." It was really strange. And then I would go to China, where my best friends were all Swedish, and they would just be burning themselves to get darker. So I thought it was strange, but then I was very quick to figure out that it doesn't really matter to me so much about what other people think about my appearance, because at the end of the day, I am the person that's going to look like that.
Yep.
So it was more like, okay, well, I understand why one culture prefers another look, but I like both cultures, so I prefer this look, and I like to tan, but not too much. And for me, that was, that's what I ended up doing with it. And for young girls that have an issue with how they look, having well, depending on different cultures' opinions, I would just tell them, you shouldn't. I don't think you should allow others to influence things that they cannot change about you. because at the end of the day, you will be the person carrying all of those things. So whatever it is that you want to do to yourself to make yourself look a certain way, make sure that you're doing it because it's what makes you comfortable and it's what makes you happy, and not because one culture says something and another culture says another thing. And if the cultures don't agree with how you feel about yourself, then it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you are living in that culture, and it's very likely that you also live in this culture. So you have to kind of also yourself, and yourself, like you are the main priority there. So just make sure that you do it for yourself.
Okay. Okay. So one of the bugs that I think with regards to the current corona epidemic, every TCK is when you ask them how you're feeling, we will say we are physically fine, but we are somehow mentally stressed out. For one thing is because we can't travel. We always have a travel bug to always be out of in the world. We always want to meet new people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think has become an anchor to you? Something like to keep you sane, in a sense, to know that hey, I'm still Jay. This is me. To still know that you are still who you are.
I understand what you mean, because I had itchy feet yesterday, and that was really weird. Something that keeps me sane is I make fun of the situation. I know it's a horrible situation, and there's nothing that's funny about it. But so if you guys, if you've seen my TCK Global stories, yesterday I went to the supermarket, and this was the highlight of my day. But I turned it into a travel story. So I started with, the leaving the car, getting past the security check and everything. And I found that entertaining for myself. And those are little things that keep me sane. And every day I'm going to start doing a travel video of myself traveling between my rooms in my house. And just keeping the situation as light as possible has been helpful. And Zoom calls are super helpful. My TCK community on TCK Global has been really, really helpful.
I was in it last time.
Yeah.
Can you guys pick a timing whereby it's not 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, it's just most of the people follow the GMT time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is disadvantage to us within the Asian region, because when you guys are like in the evening or in the nighttime, it'll be like 3 a.m. in the morning, and yeah, that could be really tiring. But I really do
open up the Asian group soon, so we'll have calls on that.
Hooray! Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's dive in a little bit more on how you come up with your definition of TCK. So I actually learned my definition from one of our mutual contacts, who's also one of my past guests, George Josie Samuels. So George was the one who told me that for TCK is because since I don't feel I belong in both my home, I'm Indonesian. I grew up in Singapore, but the thing is that I've never felt that I belong in both my home, even when I was younger. So I look for a third one. So that's my definition of TCK. How do you actually define yours, though?
Well, Ruth Van Recken, the author of the Third Culture Kids book, the book that lots of Third Culture Kids have read. When I spoke to her, she told me that the definition is someone who's lived somewhere else for a longer period of time than your parents' passport countries. But the way I really understood the definition was when I realized that I don't know where home is physically, and I didn't know how to decide which location to go to because of that. And because I had home in like multiple places, because different people were in multiple places. So for me, I ended up saying, okay, home to me is a feeling, because I might be in the Philippines and not feel at home but I could be in, I don't know, like Canada and feel like home if I have my parents there. So that's how I came to that conclusion. And I also started to feel it when I met my boyfriend and we started dating, and now we've been together for quite a long time. And when I'm with him, I feel at home. Even if in London, I don't really feel at home.
All right. Okay, what do you think are the positive traits that you've acquired from each of your homes? Sorry, it's Philippines, China, London, and sorry, UK, and what's one more? Sorry.
UK. Yeah, those are the 3 countries.
Yeah. What are the positive traits that you think you've gotten from each of your homes? And also, what do you think has been the biggest blessing for you as a TCK?
So from Philippines, I think a trait I got from there is the warmth of people.
Yep.
Like and I am a very open person. I like to make sure people are okay and very like mom-like.
Yep.
So, and I think that's what I got from the Philippine culture, because over there everybody has this trait or somewhat has it. From China, I think I have the what's it called? When you're very confident in your words and you're just willing to speak out what you say. Because in China, they don't really have a filter.
Okay.
They just tell you what they think and why they think that is, and sometimes it can be quite aggressive.
Direct.
Direct, yes.
Yeah.
And people feel like it's a bit too much if they're foreigners, but it's because they don't really grasp the entire language yet. But that part of the language translated into my speaking, like into my personality when speaking in English. UK, in London, I think what I got from here is probably work ethic. It's a very work-driven city. Everybody just works all the time. So I think my work ethic really developed here. And I think it's a good trait to have. Sometimes it's a bit overboard, but it's still, I think it's useful. So
I thought you were gonna say I can differentiate between honesty and sarcasm. The thing is just to let you guys know, one of the reasons why I started this was because I think around 2 years back, sorry, I was actually working for a British employer who, well, people by no means is a bad boss, I guess. He's a nice guy. But the problem is that when we started the company, it was like in the midst of like the end of the year, and he insisted on doing things the same way that he does it back when he was in UK when our office is in Singapore. So we don't really understand his style of speaking, his sense of humor. We don't know whether he's firing us or whether he's scolding us or he's praising us.
Yeah. They they're quite sarcastic. I don't want to say, but it's part of their culture, so it's okay. They have very dry humor.
Yeah, indeed. Though I do agree about what you mentioned about their work ethics, because yeah, I do recall that my employer used to be really on the dot, but the thing is that he do understand that there's a need for you to maybe take a quick break, but the thing is that he trusts that you get the work done. So I get where you're coming from on that. Okay, so earlier you mentioned like one of the traits you get from living in China is being direct, right? Okay, I actually want to tackle on issue. I think you've tackled this also before in your YouTube video. It's Diplo on the title called the Diplo Brats, saying that TCKs are spoiled. Do you feel how important do you feel is image in social media though? Because the thing is that a lot of TCKs come from what people understand, is that TCKs are people who come from diplomatic families. So those who work with the government. So as a result, they are entitled to certain access that is not common to everyday people. So as a result, with how social media is, they will take photo of it, then after that they will flaunt it all over social media. They would think that they are braggy, and there are those who come from a culture whereby you are on the dot, straight to the point kind of persons, and when you come to a country that's a lot more passive, they definitely do not appreciate it. So how do you think that people can actually improve on image on this?
Improve on what side?
Sorry. How do you feel that the image could be improved on this so that children of diplomats who people would call the de facto TCKs do not have this kind of image, kind of perception?
Um, I mean, I think there are two parts to it. So the first part, people who are not third culture kids and see people who are traveling or whatever it is the third culture kid is doing, I think that they should not be judging someone based on just, I mean, of course they don't have anything else to go off apart from what they're seeing, but I think
Yep.
there are, social media, everybody should know by now that social media does not reflect the true life of an individual unless that individual
Yep.
shows you everything about their life. So first, it's like people should just not judge because in different cultures you can get different things. So for example, in China, in China we had maids in our house, like they're
Yep.
called. And in the Western world, maids are, you can only get them if you're very rich. But people living in China, many people have maids over there. It's a very common. It's a very common work to have. It's a form of income many people have there. So it's different between the two different cities, and what you value in one city may not necessarily have the same value in another one. So people should stop judging. And then the next part is for third culture kids who do flaunt things that they get out of being a third culture kid, if they are in that position, because there are many types of third culture kids. There are third culture kids that don't have anything really, or have very little. Their parents managed to take them from one place to another because they needed to do that for work or whatever reason. But it doesn't mean that they're splashing out cash everywhere. And they still have to get jobs like normal people. We are all going through the same thing. But for culture kids who do flaunt things about themselves, then I think it's just important to let people know that what it is they're seeing and to clarify why they have that. Because I know people who worked at embassies when I was younger, and their parents kept their jobs for a long time, and then they had all the perks. They had big houses, they had drivers, they had maids, they had everything in Asia. And then when their children, so when my friends moved back to Europe, all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm in a tiny apartment, I'm job hunting, I need to work as a bartender for like the next year while I find a normal, stable job. So it's really relative to the different countries that you're in.
Right. Okay, I'm borrowing that answer actually because I have an interview this Sunday, and I know that the guy is gonna ask me what is my definition of home. I'm gonna interpret that in a way. All right. Yeah, that can be quite tough.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier, I love what you said on how people should not immediately judge or assume early on the point earlier. So, what do you think is what I mean? You definitely people tend to take the first 15 seconds maybe of your time when they see you, then they assume this is who you are, right? So, how do you think that when you presented yourself, especially as a TCK, that the image is not immediately something that might not be leaning towards the negative area?
A lot of the time I don't present myself as a TCK. I pick how I want to introduce myself depending on the person I'm introducing myself to.
Yep.
So if there's somebody who's never traveled before and, you know, it's very clear that they're not so open-minded, then I just am from one city. I grew up in this city. I have an accent like this because that's usually the follow-up question. My accent's like this because of my because of TV.
Yep.
And then, you know, we move on. If I'm such an international person, then I can let them know I'm a third culture kid. That's a lot easier. But usually, if it's somebody that's monoculture, I end up explaining to them over a long period of time if we develop like a friendship or whatever it is.
All right. Okay, earlier you mentioned regarding job hunting, yeah? Okay, this is a trend that I tend to notice about TCK, and I think this is something that you have experienced also, is that TCK tend to lean more towards jobs that is not a traditional 9 to 5. It is something that allows them to be a lot more, that's typically what people would describe in the media as, maybe if let's say you're an artist, basically you definitely is going to starve your ass to death. You're not going to be able to make a good living. But I think TCK tend to lean more towards a career which has a more creative focus or something which, in a sense, connected them to the world, maybe. Do you agree with this, though? And until recently, you're the head of community and creative at BRB Travel, right? What do you advise for future TCKs who want to get such kind of job?
Well, yeah, I mean, I joined a travel company because I wanted to travel a lot and I wanted to talk about travel. I do agree that most third culture kids end up being entrepreneurial or doing something creative or allows them to have the freedom to work remotely so they can travel, or you know, it's not, yeah, not the very traditional jobs. In my own experience, I've always taken the opposite of the traditional route. So my whole CV is built up of strange things, very creative things from left, right, and center. I've done a little bit of this, done a little bit of that. And what really helps is to show that you, I mean, for any job, what really helps is to show that you've done what they needed to do before.
Yep.
So if so, for me, for content and community, a lot of my work I've shown is through my last company or through my third culture kid work.
Yep.
And I think the easiest thing for someone to do would be to know what job they're looking for and look at job descriptions online, see what part of the job description they haven't, they don't have on their CV yet, and try
Yep.
to do those things in their own way, so that when the employer asks them if they check all of the job description, then they can say yes, and here's my work. This is why. And I usually, for me, that's what worked. So.
All right. Okay. Just to let you guys know, the questions that I come up, that I think of for Jay is amongst the toughest that I have ever thought of. The reason being is that she has a YouTube channel whereby she answers issues on TCK. So as a result, whenever I come up with a question, I thought, okay, this is cool. Then suddenly I found out that she actually has answered in the video. So I'm like, crap, I'm screwed. Yeah, that's among the, yeah, seriously. So I review at least a lot of your playlists at least 12, at least 7 times, 7 to 12 times at least. I review all of them until I'm like, okay, does she have this question? Crap, she has this answer. Crap, I need to come up with something new again. So thank God, I got something that still gives a challenge in answering it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is something that I actually came up after watching the recent release of Ip Man, I think before the Corona epidemic, and movies like Black Panther, or I think so it actually deals on racism. So recently I posted an article with regards to xenophobia. It in fact happened in UK, where a Singaporean was attacked because at that time when the corona was released, they just attacked any kind of Chinese that is possible. So it's pretty sad. But do you think is my question on it is gonna tackle more on portrayal of racism and race in general in the media? Because, well, let's say when you're living maybe in Asia, they will like to portray that the foreign powers are belittling who you are. So as a result, you are portrayed as the good guys, whereas the foreign power is the bad guys, right? So what do you think could be done in the media to prevent such a thing from happening in the future, though?
I mean, the media is the reason why these things happen a lot of the time, because the media speaks in a way that makes you want to take a side.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's their job. They're there to form opinions in your brain. They're there to make you feel certain things. They're there to make you happy, sad, angry, scared.
Yep.
So for the media, I think it would be better if they took a more holistic approach where it wasn't influenced by opinion and it was just very factual. This is what happened. This is where it came from. This is why it happened. If it happened in any other country, it could have happened.
Yep.
And they should be very clear about these things. But because of people like Trump, for example, who call the virus the Chinese virus,
Oh,
then
correct. Yeah.
other people are going to start associating it with people who are Chinese. However, I do think that the media can change, although I don't think they will. But what can help the most, I think, is if people took an approach where they don't automatically read something and then feel like, oh my God, this is definitely Chinese. I think they should take a step back and go, okay, I have like 50 sources in front of me. This is what they're saying. What is my conclusion of everything that everyone's been saying? And I think by having a wider perspective on what you're reading from the media and knowing that the media has a goal to influence you in certain ways, then I think forming your opinion based on knowing that will help people have less of a racist reaction towards it.
Yep. Okay, this is actually going to be my last question. It's actually a twist on my usual final questions, though. Quite a fun fact. You actually have lived in, I think, 2 of the 3 most pivotal area in Marvel Cinematic Universe. You only like New York City.
Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna be there this year to travel.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say now you are given the Infinity Stones, like the ability to control everything in this whole world. Yeah. What 3 positive influence do you think could be done to improve the society as it is now?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Oh, sorry. You have the power to do anything in the world that you wanted. So, what 3 positive things that you think could be done will you do to improve the world? Maybe if in general, maybe towards the TCKs, something that a society that can be a lot more open to the TCK.
I see. Is this in general or just third culture kid?
Either way, yeah.
Well, in general, I have a soft spot for people who are homeless, because my family works to help rebuild homes in the Philippines for people who don't have any. And so one of the things I would really like to do would be to try and set up a very clear structure for people who are homeless in different countries so that they can set up their own communities in a way that allows them to learn how to work and then learn how to feed themselves, kind of like teaching someone how to fish for fish instead of just giving them the fish.
Yep.
I think it's important that we focus on helping homeless people around the world where poverty is very high, because these people are really getting, like they don't have anything. And for us who have a roof over our heads, I think it's important that we give back.
Okay.
So that's another one would be to create a large awareness for third cultures. I think right now the first step for TCKs is for people to know who they are, and for third culture kids to know that they belong somewhere.
Yep.
So that's the second thing I would like to do. And then the third thing, I think would just be for people to be more kind to one another.
Yep.
We're starting to see it now with the coronavirus around, but before this, no one would clap. I mean, unless it was a festival where you attended and you went to dance, I don't know, whatever you do in the festivals. No one would clap outside their balconies, you know, as
Yep.
individuals with a lot of strangers around. It took
Yep.
a pandemic for them to do that type of, you know, that act of kindness. And I'm noticing in London right now where people who usually would never speak to each other are starting to speak to each other. They're starting to say hello. They're being nice to one another. They're not ignoring each other on the street anymore. And I think a lot more of that should be spread around the world. If people could treat every day as us all going through a pandemic and we all need to work together, I think it would
All right. Okay, that is actually my final question. So, first off, I need to do a little shout out. So, thank you for those who tune into this channel. So, again, I need to tell you guys the reason why I really would love to acknowledge you guys, but the thing is that the software that I'm using, StreamYard, doesn't allow me to see who you are unless you like the post. So first off, I do appreciate when you guys still tune in, but yeah, do leave a like for the video so that I know who you are. And for those who actually leave a like, I actually need to thank some of these individuals. So first off is Dragos, our dear friend Dragos, who finally got his drink. And along with that is Mr. Gianfranco de Leon, and of course, Miss Carrie Pips, who is actually one of my past guests. So yeah, that is actually my final questions ready. Jay, do you have anything you want to say? Maybe any upcoming TCK global programs or something that is going to in relation to how we are handling the epidemic now?
I think it's important that we stick together from around the world. So TCK Global is going to keep hosting lots of Zoom calls. And Trish and I are working on adding more people into our Slack community in bulk. So we should have a big influx of people coming in soon. But yeah, stay safe, stay inside, don't go crazy, watch travel videos. It'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Oh yeah, I also need to do a shout out to Trish because she has been really helpful in setting up this meeting. So, yeah. So for those of you who are interested to try something like what I'm doing, a streamcast like this, there's a promo code from StreamYard, and there's also a voucher from Canva. It's located in the link in the description box. If you want to reach out Jay, all of her social media links are also available in the description box. You can also reach out to me, but if you do reach out to her, please let her know where you know her from, because well, this is her own personal privacy. Yeah. So with that, that's the end of Global Citizens episode 39. So with that, oh yes, I also have an interview with the podcast Ben there, which is coming this Sunday. So yeah, do tune into that also. Okay, and that's the end of the show. So thanks so much, Jay, for coming. Hope everything works out there.
Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.
Bye.